Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Unrivaled Tang Sect based on novel. So let's start. This was where Huo Yuhao demonstrated his intelligence. His questions were very precise, and so he did not arouse the woman's suspicions. After some haggling, Huo Yuhao was able to rent, at an exorbitant price, a cargo ship 150 meters long, which could carry 10,000 kilograms worth of goods. This cargo ship was equipped with 10 Class 3 Soul cannons, manned by 10 Class 3 Soul engineers. It was not cheap. In total, Huo Yuhao had to pay out 4,500 gold Soul coins. Huo Yuhao paid 1/3 of the deposit upfront. He would load his goods after 1 week. He put his receipt away and started to leave the Sun Moon Harbor Shipping Company with Nan Chocho. A look of joy flashed in his eyes. His preparations were sound. However, not long after he left the building, he was blocked by some men. They were all muscular and rugged, and smelled of the ocean. They stood in a row, completely blocking the rather narrow street. "What do you want?" Before Huo Yuhao could say anything, Nan Chocho had already opened her mouth. Among the 4 buff men, the leader smiled and said, "We don't want much. We noticed that you've just rented a huge ship, and we think you'll need some men to help you out. Hence, we've decided to offer you our services to help you transport these goods. How about it?" While he seemed to be asking, his tone was off. Huo Yuhao said plainly, "There's no need. We have enough men on our own. Don't find trouble with us, we're backed by a major chamber of commerce." The leader laughed and said, "So what if you're backed by a chamber of commerce? We're Bluebeard's men. Have you heard of him?" Bluebeard. Huo Yuhao and Nan Chocho naturally did not know who he was. They looked at each other. Nan Chocho looked dumbfounded, but Huo Yuhao's eyes were soon clouded with fear. "You're your Bluebeard's men? What do you want?" The one in charge was satisfied with Huo Yuhao's reaction as he said, "Let's find a quiet place to speak." As he said that, the 3 of them advanced forward menacingly, surrounding Huo Yuhao and Nan Chocho. Huo Yuhao looked scared, but his right hand grabbed Nan Chocho's arm tightly, stopping her from acting rashly. They were led down a quiet and empty alley by these big men. Once they were well into the alley, the leader said with a leer, "Young man, it seems that you know about Bluebeard. There's nothing more to say then. For the safety of your goods, you have to pay tolls. As Bluebeard's men, well, follow the rules. We don't want much from you, just 1/3 of the value of your goods. When you load them onto the ship later, well, come down to do an estimate. By coming down today, we're just making sure you know of our presence. At the same time, we're giving you a chance. It's just a formality." As he said this, he extended his right hand and rubbed his thumb, index finger, and middle finger together. The fear quickly faded from Huo Yuhao's face as he let go of Nan Chocho's hand. "Chocho, I know that you have been trying to hold it in for the whole day. Here's your chance. These men are pirates. Destroy them humanely, and try and keep it clean." After he said that, he immediately started to walk away. "Rascal, where do you think you're going?" one of the brawny men shouted. He was already trying to grab Huo Yuhao. However, at this moment, a ray of pink light shot out from next to Huo Yuhao. It landed on the man, who collapsed before he could even shout. With Huo Yuhao's cultivation and spiritual power, he had already seen that of the 4 buff men, only the leader was a rank 20 Soul Grandmaster. The rest were just normal men who were a tad more muscular. Pirates of the Sun Moon Empire? How could they be good? There were bursts of curses, cries, and grunts coming from behind him, which stopped extremely quickly. Before Huo Yuhao could even walk out from the alley, he could smell perfume coming up from behind him. Nan Chocho dusted her hands off and said unhappily, "Not fun, they were all too weak. This doesn't satisfy me. You're a sly fellow indeed, tricking them here before striking." Huo Yuhao turned to look at her, and hissed, "Chocho, grow some brains. Did you want to kill them out in the open? Wouldn't that reveal who we are? Let's head back." He was pleased with how Nan Chocho had handled it. The light of annihilation annihilated more than just soul power. The alley was spotless, and without a single trace of a fight. He did not rush to leave, but instead stayed 1 night in Seajoy City. The next morning, just as the sky was brightening, the Tang sect resumed their journey. This time, they did not fly. Huo Yuhao dictated that they would not continue their journey by air. The Sun Moon Empire had the most surveillance-type soul tools of all the countries on the continent. Every city was guarded by them, and they might even have some planted in the wilderness. With their strength, they would need around 2 days to reach their destination by land. Sunrise City, where the hostages were kept, was located in the south of the Sun Moon Empire. They made their detour so as to not expose their identities. They resumed their journey, but did not travel off the beaten path. Instead, they went by the main roads, and they moved ahead at full speed. Every time they ran into other travelers, Huo Yuhao would use imitation to make them invisible. They were thus able to bypass the other travelers without being noticed, and without slowing down. As they moved forward, they did not encounter any difficulties. As the Tang sect moved quickly toward Sunrise City, a bunch of other uninvited guests appeared near the Sun Moon Empire's border. Elder Xian flew at the forefront, Elder Song next to him. With the two of them in the lead, they were followed by other elders, as well as the Dean of Shrek Academy, Yang Xiaozhe, and the Vice Dean of the Soul Tool Department, Chen Duoduo. While there were only 8 of them, their combined power was nearly unprecedented in history. Chen Duoduo had recently risen to rank 95, and formally become a transcendent Doluor. Hence, it could be said that all 8 of them were transcendent Doluor. Their combined power was even higher than when they had last taken action during the tournament. As this was the border, the density of surveillance-type soul tools was the highest here. Instantly, 7 or 8 high-altitude surveillance soul tools locked onto his position. Elder Xian smiled, and pressed forward with his right palm. An intense yellow light shone from his body. Instantly, the sky appeared to collapse. An incomparably powerful aura radiated out from him. The high-altitude surveillance soul tools that had detected Elder Xian all started to whine loudly. Even as they sensed the power of their target, they were all affected by it. The high-altitude surveillance soul tools were built on the foundation of sealed milk bottles, which provided them with enough soul power to spend a long time in the air. However, as Elder Xian's soul power fluctuations were too vigorous, it caused the soul power in the sealed milk bottles to react adversely. Bang! Dazzling fireworks burst out nearby. Bang, 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 bang. A series of explosions, accompanied by flashy red fireworks, followed the first one quickly. After a breath or two, all the high-altitude surveillance soul tools in a 2.5-kilometer radius were blown up by Elder Xian's massive soul power. After Elder Xian did that, the rest started to act too. With their transcendent Doluor strength, they did not need any flying-type soul tools to fly. The remaining 7 all flew off in different directions. After a short while, the pitch-black night sky started to light up again. A huge amount of aerial surveillance-type soul tools were destroyed at great speed. However, the Sun Moon Empire was still the most powerful empire on the continent. It quickly reacted and counterattacked. Powerful rays of light lit up on the ground as soul tools bombarded the sky. They were all wide-barreled soul cannons, and there were also other soul cannons which could immobilize, paralyze, or stun their target. Only soul tools which were class 6 and above could hit targets at their altitude. Instantly, the entire sky was illuminated by bright, eye-catching lights. The rays of light from the soul cannons were like a forest of death that enveloped everything. Faced with this formation, even a normal titled Doluor would panic, and try to escape as quickly as he could. However, no matter how strong the Sun Moon Empire's defenses were, they were not designed to withstand transcendent Doluor. Or at least, they were not prepared to handle 8 of them. Faced with the rapidly rising rays of light, Elder Xian and the rest rose higher into the air. No one knew how many soul cannons the Sun Moon Empire had beneath them, so fighting them head-on was not a wise choice. However, no matter how powerful a soul cannon was, even if it was class 9, its range was limited. With their transcendent Doluor cultivation, they could fly 3,000 meters into the air, a height which would allow them to dodge most soul tools. The 8 figures rose into the sky. Even if a soul cannon could strike them, it could not overcome their defenses. Without the help of the destroyed high-altitude surveillance soul tools, it would be difficult to lock onto their positions. However, Elder Xian and the others did not relax. They had seen the strength of the Sun Moon Empire's soul tools in battle, and understood how terrifying their opponents were. In Elder Xian's heart, he rejoiced at the fact that Huo Yuhao had destroyed the underground bunker. At that time, he had scolded the young man because that action might have impoverished many. However, now that he thought about it, he realized that had the huge warehouse not been destroyed, all the soul tools inside of it would have been deployed in war. Even transcendent Doluor like them had to dodge to avoid getting hit by this many soul cannons. How would the soldiers of the 3 countries fare? The high-altitude bombardment did not last for very long. After a few minutes, the strong light coming from the ground started to slowly fade. At the same time, ground-based aerial surveillance soul tools started to scan the air using huge swaths of shapeless light waves to find Elder Xian and the others. However, The range of these soul tools was only about 1,000 meters. If not, there would no need for those high-altitude surveillance soul tools. The Sun Moon Empire only possessed this level of technology at the moment. After the ground-based aerial surveillance soul tools performed a scan, figures rose into the air and charged toward them in the sky. All of these figures had a light on their backs, which came from flying-type soul tools. There were hundreds of them. One of them, in the center, carried a large surveillance soul tool. Faced with a sudden attack, the Sun Moon Empire had come up with an all-around response. First, they bombarded their targets with all their might. Then, they used ground-based aerial surveillance soul tools to scan for them. Finally, they deployed their aerial warfare legion. Elder Xian did not like killing, so he did not kill them straight away, but instead used his domain-type gravity control. All of the soldiers fell to the ground like flies that been doused with insecticide. The other elders did not slack either. Discussion and action were separate matters. Explosions rang out from the ground below. According to the unspoken rules of the continent, titled Doluor and high-level soul engineers would not attack ordinary people. This was why Elder Song did not want to attack just now. However, Elder Xian had found a loophole. Their target was naturally not the ordinary soldiers of the Sun Moon Empire. However, faced with an attack by the aerial soul engineers, Elder Xian naturally would not show mercy. The other elders did not kill, but instead tried to cause as much destruction as possible. While the soul cannon bombardment just now was powerful, it also revealed the locations of the soul cannons the Sun Moon Empire had installed. Hence, they became targets for the many transcendent Doluor. Beyond the sites of the soul cannons, they also attacked granaries and ammunition warehouses. That night was a nightmare for the Sun Moon Empire's border troops stationed near the Heavenly Soul Empire. Explosions boomed from midnight to dawn. When the sun rose once more, the main camp of the Sun Moon Empire was completely ruined. How could there be no Class 9 Soul Engineers in charge of such an important camp? However, the 2 Class 9 Soul Engineers in charge there could do nothing in the face of 8 transcendent Doluor. Furthermore, the attack took place at night. Without the high-altitude surveillance soul tools, how could they concentrate their fire on the elders of the Sea God's Pavilion? War had yet to break out, but Shrek Academy was already using its strength to demonstrate to the Sun Moon Empire that Soul Masters were still the most powerful weapons of war. Elder Xian and the other elders did not hide their identities. Soon, news of this destruction spread throughout the Sun Moon Empire. Smash! A delicate tea bottle was shattered against the ground. Shu Tianran was so enraged that his face was pale. What the hell were the border troops doing? 400 soul engineers are injured or dead. A huge amount of soul cannons and ammunition were lost. Fools, a bunch of fools. Juzi sat next to Shu Tianran, clad in light golden regalia, and was silent. After Shu Tianran ascended to the throne, he named her his empress. Her position was unlike before. After Shu Tianran was done venting his anger, he calmed down, and a smile crept across the corner of his mouth as he said, "Shrek, have you finally decided to strike? Someone go and summon the imperial tutor to discuss this matter." "Yes." The guards outside replied frightfully. "Empress, what do you think?" Shu Tianran asked Juzi. Juzi nodded and said, "I believe that to be the case." They'll continue to attack. Faced with these powerful soul masters, it is indeed impossible to fight back. They rely on the border with the Heavenly Soul Empire and the Star Luo Empire, which makes it hard for us to strike back at them. Shu Tianran chuckled coldly and said, "Do they want to see who is more destructive? In that case, no one can beat evil soul masters. Since they want to unleash destruction, I shall do it, too. Let's see who will crack first." Juzi shook her head and said, "No, Your Majesty, you can't do that. We aren't ready yet. If we do that, we'll be provoking the war ahead of schedule. While the Holy Ghost Church is powerful, they cannot fight all the soul masters of the original 3 countries of the continent. This may be a trap set by our opponents. If the Holy Ghost Church suffers a major defeat, it will not do us any good." Shu Tianran was ultimately a crafty leader. Just now, anger had made him lose his reason, but he gradually calmed down and patted Juzi's hand. "With you as my empress, I'm blessed indeed. Tell me, what should we do?" A murderous aura flashed in her eyes as she said, "Your Majesty, our empire still has a stockpile of Class 9 stationary soul cannons. There are some that can shoot into the sky, right?" Shu Tianran's eyes lit up as he said, "Are you saying we should intimidate them?" "Yes. Kill one to scare 100. This will prevent them from being so arrogant. There are some soul masters who have yet to taste the might of a Class 9 stationary soul cannon. A clear breeze intermingled with the aroma of nature. Insects and birds chirped in the forest, and sunlight cascaded down, casting faint rays that could not penetrate the thick foliage. Underneath a tree so wide that it would require at least 10 people to surround it, sat a person. Her powdery blue long hair hung loosely behind her back. As she was sitting down, her hair brushed the ground. Her eyes were shut, her long eyebrows curled slightly, and her nose was straight. Her skin was pale white, and her lips were supple. If beauty had a human form, this was it. Her long, slender legs were crossed as she sat straight. From the side, one could see her round, heaving posterior. Her slender figure, which stretched from her waist to her posterior, would attract the attention of any man. Even though her eyes were closed, she emitted an icy-cold aura that deterred most beasts and men from approaching her. If one could sense the auras nearby, one would realize that apart from birds and insects, there were no large animals. This was one of the most mysterious and dangerous places in the Doluo continent. Soul Masters called it the Slaughtering Grounds, as it was the core region of the Great Star-Do Forest. To humans, this was a deadly place. Even transcendent Doluo would not dare to come to this place without preparation, because half of the 10 great savage beasts of the Doluo continent lived here. They each had extraordinary abilities, and were as intelligent as humans. Furthermore, they could also command the many powerful soul beasts inside the Great Star-Do Forest. Normally, a 100,000-year soul beast was equivalent to a titled Doluo. In terms of strength, it depended on the innate skills of the individual soul beast, just like how it depended on the martial soul and soul skills of a titled Doluo. Once a soul beast broke through its bottleneck and reached a 200,000-year cultivation level, its power could rival that of a transcendent Doluo. Every 100,000 years after that would be a matter of life and death to the soul beast. Undoubtedly, every time the soul beast overcame such a deadly test, its power would increase exponentially. It was like when Huo Yuhao first met the Ice Empress. The terrifying power of the Ice Empress was enough to fight a rank 97 titled Doluo. In the extreme north, even someone as powerful as Elder Xian might not have been able to defeat her. Among the 10 great savage beasts, however, the Ice Empress was only ranked 7th. As for the Snow Empress, the reason why she started to regress and almost self-destructed inside Huo Yuhao was because her own power was way too strong. After a soul beast broke through the 500,000-year barrier, it would be as powerful as an ultimate Doluo. In other words, the Snow Empress was as powerful as the Dragon Emperor Doluo, Long Xiaoyao. If he met her in the extreme north, Long Xiaoyao would not dare to fight her head-on. In the world of soul beasts, including the Snow Empress, 5 of the 10 great savage beasts were as powerful as ultimate Doluo. They all held powerful positions. Naturally, they were the top 5 of the 10 great savage beasts. At this moment, in the core region of the Great Star-Do Forest, the Slaughtering Grounds, lived the 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th of the 10 great savage beasts. They ruled over all the other soul beasts. To live in the Slaughtering Grounds, one had to have a cultivation of at least 100,000 years. Hence, this was the top place for transcendent Doluo to seek adventures. Once one reached the level of a transcendent Doluo, he would not need soul rings anymore. However, it was important to remember that the killing of a 100,000-year-old soul beast would not only spawn a 100,000-year soul ring, but more importantly, it would produce a soul bone, a 100,000-year soul bone which carried 2 soul skill. For soul masters, gold and riches were nothing. However, how many people could possess all 6 soul bones? Once a transcendent Doluo had a 100,000-year soul beast soul bone, his power would experience a qualitative leap. Hence, many transcendent Doluo visited the Slaughtering Grounds. Some of them even killed a few 100,000-year soul beasts. In the end, this enraged the leaders of the soul beasts in the Great Star-Do Forest. They launched an unprecedentedly terrifying beast wave, targeting Shrek City. It terrified all soul masters. Even though Shrek City was able to halt the invading beast wave with the help of the many disciples from Shrek Academy, as well as the body sect, the humans eventually compromised. Shrek Academy led a total of 27 titled Doluo in promising, on behalf of all humans, that as long as a 100,000-year soul beast did not leave the Slaughtering Grounds, the humans would not enter it. Only then did the leaders of the soul beasts calm down and end their destructive beast wave, and the devastation it brought in its wake. From that moment on, the Slaughtering Grounds in the Great Star-Do Forest became a forbidden zone for humans. Not a single human could be found there. The beasts with more than 100,000-year cultivation all fell into a deep slumber. They gathered their energy and prepared to break through their next calamity. Under this backdrop, in the spiritual aura-filled slaughter grounds, sat a woman. How could this scene not be shocking? Could it mean that the promise between humans and beasts was broken? Suddenly, the woman's body started to tremble slightly. Following that, a strange scene appeared. A golden light shone in the center of her forehead. This golden light extended into a ray of light about 1 inch long. The golden ray then split into two, and turned into a golden eye, which looked up into the endless night sky. When the eye shone, everything around it seemed to lose its color. The chirping of birds and insects suddenly stopped. It was as if the eye was the only thing that was alive, and was judging everything before it. The eye looked into the distance, and gradually started to ripple clearly, a wave of gentle golden light starting to spread from the girl's body. Light flashed, and the girl started to move. She stood up, and the moment she did, her slim, slender body became even more alluring. Sunrise City. With the continual development of soul tools, more and more lower-level soul tools started to enter the daily lives of the common folk of the Sun Moon Empire. Perhaps the Sun Moon Empire's higher-level soul engineers could not rival the soul masters from the original 3 countries of the Doluor continent, but it had more low-level soul masters. This was a result of their advances in soul engineering. On the Doluor continent, everyone could awaken their martial soul at the age of 6. Regardless of what their martial soul was, they could all cultivate. However, those who could truly make a name for themselves in the Soul Master world could not just rely on cultivation. For many of them, even after they had awakened their martial soul, their soul power would only be between rank 1 and rank 3. This was a huge limitation on their future cultivation, which was not just limited to the first 10 ranks. If they were not innately talented, they would get very little in return for their effort. In particular, if their martial soul had no practical use, such as those which were hoes, cups, or plates, there was no need for them to continue cultivating. Because of this, many of those who were not gifted in this aspect had no way of continuing their cultivation. Their lack of innate talent prevented them from receiving an education from an excellent academy, and often they could not afford the exorbitant fees of a soul master school. Very few were like Huo Yuhao, who was able to use make-up for his lack of innate talent with hard work. However, the situation over in the Sun Moon Empire was different. A few hundred years ago, with the development of soul engineering, this situation was greatly ameliorated. In the Sun Moon Empire, the awakening of one's martial soul would also mean that as long as one had soul power, he or she would qualify for free training subsidized by the empire. They would even be given medicines that could increase their soul power. While these medicines might have side effects, it was glorious to become a soul master. Being a soul master meant that one was superior to his peers. Who would give up such a chance? So what if your martial soul was useless? As long as you had soul power, you could use soul tools. With soul tools, it would not be hard to attack or defend yourself. Perhaps it was a result of the medicines, but soul masters without innate talent could possess only 2 or 3 rings at most. However, as the numbers of this group of people grew, the overall situation changed. Their existence was a strong foundation upon which the Sun Moon Empire built its soul engineer legions. At the same time, they allowed for more civilian soul tools to be used by the ordinary citizens of the Sun Moon Empire. How was the Sun Moon Empire able to resist the 3 empires of the Doluor continent? This was one of the major reasons. Undoubtedly, in terms of soul engineering technology and the nurturing of soul engineers, the Sun Moon Empire had a very large lead. Sunrise City was only a small to medium-sized city in the Sun Moon Empire. It was not as huge as Radiant City, and in total, it had fewer than 100,000 permanent residents. Counting its non-permanent residents, it had about 500,000 inhabitants at any given time. However, in the past few months, the city had undergone a complete change. Its 15-meter-tall city walls were now filled with a huge amount of searchlights and various surveillance tools. Outside Sunrise City were 2 soul engineering legions, each of which had 500 men. In the Sun Moon Empire, soul engineer legions were ranked differently. The most powerful one was the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineering Legion, which was the most powerful force in the empire. One's soul power had to be at least rank 50 to join it. In other words, only soul kings were qualified to enter it. In total, it had 300 men. Among them were 3 legion commanders and 3 legion vice commanders, all of whom were Class 9 soul engineers who were loyal only to the imperial family. Only the Emperor of the Sun Moon Empire could use this powerful soul engineering legion. They were equipped with the top soul tools, and they received the best treatment among all the soldiers in the Sun Moon Empire. The upkeep for this one legion was equivalent to the tax revenue of 2 big cities. This was the force which guarded Radiant City, and they were the most loyal and important fighting force of the emperor. Together with the imperial palace of consecration, they were the two pillars of the monarchy. When these two forces worked together, even a powerful entity like the Holy Ghost Church had to be wary, much less an ordinary person. Other than the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion, the Empire also had 4 other Beast Lord-ranked Soul Engineer Legions. They were the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion, the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion, the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, and the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion. These 4 soul engineering legions were all named after powerful kings among soul beasts. Among them, Imperial Dragon referred to the purple brilliant heaven-destroying dragon. This was a powerful but extinct soul beast. In the Sun Moon Empire's imperial family, some of its scions possessed this powerful bloodline martial soul. One of the main reasons that Shu Tianran was able to ascend to the throne was that he inherited this martial soul, unlike the son that the other descendants of the imperial family possessed. His purple brilliant heaven-destroying dragon and the Earth Dragon sect's bloodline martial soul, ruby dragons, were similar in some aspects, but they were also distinctly different from any anther. The element of the ruby dragons was annihilation, while the element of the purple brilliant heaven-destroying dragons was catastrophe, which was more tyrannical than the ruby dragon's annihilation. Legend had it that the purple brilliant heaven-destroying dragon's ancestor was a second dragon which had accompanied the dragon god, and was also known as the ancestor of the second dragons. However, as it was too destructive, it was personally destroyed by the dragon god. The Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion was naturally named after the dark golden Terraclaw bear. This terrifying beast was legendary in all countries. The Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion took its name from the mythical Fire Phoenix. It only recruited female soul engineers, and its current leader was the Empress of the Sun Moon Empire, Ju Zi. The last legion, the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion, was named after the only one of the 10 great savage beasts that lived in the Sun Moon Empire's borders, the Evil Eye Tyrant King. This beast was ranked second among the 10 great savage beasts, and was infamous throughout the entire Sun Moon continent. It had hidden itself, and no one knew if it was alive or dead. However, since the Sun Moon Empire decided to name an entire legion after it because of its ferocity, one could tell how fearsome it was. There was a legend surrounding the Evil Eye Tyrant King. When the Sun Moon continent first crashed into the Doluor continent, the Evil Eye Tyrant King once went to the Great Star Do Forest to find the beast god, Di Tian. No one knew what happened between the Evil Eye Tyrant King and the beast god, but when the former returned to the Sun Moon Empire, it vanished without a trace. Di Tian was still the beast god, and was still ranked first among the 10 great savage beasts. However, after that battle, the Evil Eye Tyrant King was able to retreat in one piece from the Great Star Do Forest, establishing its title as the second most powerful beast among the 10 great savage beasts. The 4 Soul Engineer Legions each had their specialties. For example, the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion was all female. The Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion was filled with buff men, the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion was the best at fighting, and the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion specialized in speed. To join any of them, one's soul power had to be at least rank 40, which was the equivalent of a soul ancestor. Each Beast Lord-ranked Soul Engineer Legion had 300 members. Other than Ju Zi, who led the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, the other Legion commanders were all Class 9 Soul Engineers. The Vice Legion commander of the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion was a Class 9 Soul Engineer, too. Together with the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion, they were collectively known as the hand that protects the nation. They were the 5 pillars which supported the Sun Moon Empire. Other than these 5 Soul Engineer Legions, the other Soul Engineer Legions had lower entry requirements. They were comprised of 500 men each, and as long as one had more than 2 soul rings, one could join. Right now, there were 6 of these legions, totaling 3,000 men, all stationed in different locations. Other than them, the major regional armies of the Sun Moon Empire each recruited legions of soul engineers, too. However, their organization was not standardized, and even the imperial family could not control all of them. Many of them belonged to the nobility, like the rebellious ones Huo Yuhao and the others had met earlier on. On the battlefield, even a low-level Soul Engineer Legion was stronger than a cavalry legion of 10,000 men. They were highly destructive, and because they were few in number, they could use their soul tools very flexibly. Normally, a single Soul Engineer Legion could decide the outcome of a battle. The 5 major Soul Engineer Legions could also turn into aerial Soul Engineers. Their many years of training allowed them to work together seamlessly, and their morale was strong. Commanded by top Soul Engineers, they would be the backbone of the Sun Moon Empire's future conquests. Around Sunrise City, which seemed plain and ordinary, The Sun-Moon Empire had stationed 2 of the 6 Soul Engineer legions, each of which comprised 500 men. This was a testament to the importance of Sunrise City to the Sun-Moon Empire. Furthermore, this was just its outer city defenses. Huo Yuhao and his companions had reached the outskirts of Sunrise City 1 day ago, but they were in no rush to enter it. Instead, they intermingled with a trade delegation and stayed outside the city for a day. With Huo Yuhao present, it was akin to having a highly effective surveillance soul tool. Despite the Sun-Moon Empire's technological prowess, no soul tool could rival Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection when it came to surveillance. After his closed-door cultivation, Huo Yuhao had merged all his skills together. He had also obtained a deeper understanding of his concrete material realm's spiritual power. Right now, he was scanning the entire area. He was able to detect anything within a 1,500-meter radius. If he concentrated his spiritual power in a particular direction, he would be able to sense everything there, be it the differences in obstacles, terrain, or the weather, up to a distance of 5,000 to 7,000 meters. This was without using his Eye of Destiny. After a night's rest, Huo Yuhao was able to gather enough intelligence. He was well aware that there were powerful people guarding the captured Soul Masters. To avoid startling them, he did not try to survey inside the city. There were many different types of martial souls, and each day brought new changes to the development of soul engineering. He could not be sure that no one from the Sun-Moon Empire would be able to sense the presence of his spiritual power, and so he acted very cautiously. If they failed this time, their chances of success next time would be even tinier. There were only 7 of them there. It was impossible to win based on brute force alone. Hence, they had to depend on the opportunity Shrek Academy created for them, as well as their own wits. After a night's worth of detection, Huo Yuhao discovered that the 2 Soul Engineer legions of 500 men were divided into 10 groups. These were stationed at various locations outside Sunrise City. Sunrise City was surrounded by open plains. All 1,000 Soul Engineers had taken up positions in the plains. Soul cannons, which were weak individually, were deployed in huge quantities around the city. There were also some high-level soul tools nearby. One could say that Sunrise City, in its current state, was akin to a city under threat of death. If the army of Soul Engineers wished, they could level the city in a very short time. They were not the problematic ones, though. Those were the many surveillance soul tools on the walls of Sunrise City. After one scan, Huo Yuhao found out that they comprised long-range all-terrain soul detectors, short-range thermal detectors, medium-range aerial soul detectors, triggered targeting-type soul tools, and a huge amount of high-altitude surveillance soul tools. One could say that even if a fly flew out from Sunrise City, the Soul Engineers in charge of these surveillance soul tools would be able to detect it. Huo Yuhao could conceal himself with imitation, and he could use his ultimate ice to prevent his body heat from being picked up by the short-range thermal detectors. However, that was all he could do. There was nothing he could do against the triggered targeting-type soul tools. That type of soul tool sensed the fluctuations of one's soul power. When he used his imitation and ultimate ice, his soul power would definitely fluctuate. At that moment, if his foes were locked onto his location, Huo Yuhao would be bombarded by every single Soul Engineer stationed outside. This was akin to being carpet-bombed. With the high density of Soul Engineers nearby, there was no way he could escape. Yuhao, what can we do? After breakfast, the Tang sect discussed this issue in hushed voices. At this moment, a long line had already formed outside Sunrise City. Right now, anyone entering or leaving Sunrise City would be searched and screened. This was why there were trade delegations stationed outside the city. Searching one such delegation would require a whole day, or even more. Huo Yuhao and the rest were able to blend in with these trade delegations. As there were many traders, no one had noticed them. Huo Yuhao said, "I've scanned this place carefully. It's impossible to sneak inside, as there are too many surveillance soul tools. Almost every type of surveillance soul tool is present. It'll be troublesome to go in via the city gate, as they have soul power detectors which can sense the fluctuations in our soul power. They can then determine our strength based on our soul power fluctuations." Shu Sancha frowned and said, "It's already been a few months, and yet they're still so vigilant. We can't even enter the city like this. How can we save them? Furthermore, they captured over 600 people. Even if we do enter, can we save them all? Escape will be difficult too, with so many Soul Engineers both in and around the city. Can we even escape?" Huo Yuhao said, "It's difficult indeed, but there's still a chance. We need to react accordingly." "Well, go in swords waving," Ji Juechen said coolly. Shu Sancha waved at him and said, "Bye-bye. Part 1 end here.